if the diet has enough easily accessible energy from non-protein sources, think lipids, carbohydrates, the fish uses that for its basic metabolic needs.
Instead of breaking down valuable protein just for energy.
Exactly. It spares the protein to do its main job. Building tissue, growth, get the PE ratio wrong, and you're either wasting protein as expensive fuel or hindering growth.
A whole new era of communication in the global aquaculture industry is coming. Now you have the brightest minds in aquaculture right in your pocket. And what's best? You can listen to all of them while driving to a farm, traveling, or running errands. It's never been this good, and it's never been this simple. Welcome to the Aquaculture Podcast Show, the first AI-based podcast in aquaculture, where you'll find cutting-edge insights in everything that's working in aquaculture, nutrition, health, and production.
Welcome back. Today we're doing a deep dive into something really central for U.S. aquaculture. Fine-tuning protein requirements for Nile tilapia.
That's right. And we're drawing from a pretty hefty review, 81 studies synthesized. It's quite a resource.
It really is. And Nile tilapia, its importance is huge, both globally and increasingly right here. Is it about 9% globally?
Roughly, yes. And in places like Brazil, it's absolutely dominant, nearly 64% of their fish farming. And protein, well, it's the building block.
For growth, metabolism, keeping tissues healthy. It's fundamental.
Absolutely key. But formulating for it isn't simple.
No, and the review really highlights that. So many factors influence the actual need. The growth stage is a big one, obviously.
And the system you're using, biofloc, RAS, ponds, they all change the equation.
Plus the specific strain, the feed ingredients themselves, water quality, even temperature.
It's a complex matrix. So our goal today is really to pull out the practical takeaways from this review, especially for U.S. professionals managing production and reproduction phases.
Okay, let's start with something foundational the review hits on. Digestible protein, DP, versus crude protein, CP. Why the focus on DP?
Well, it's simply a more accurate metric for what the fish can actually use. CP just measures total nitrogen.
Right, and not all nitrogen is usable protein.
Exactly. Some is non-protein nitrogen. DP looks at the fraction that gets broken down, gastric digestion, intestinal enzymes, and absorbed as amino acids or peptides.
And some protein is inevitably lost, right, in the feces?
Precisely. So
Yeah.
DP accounts for that loss. It tells you what's truly available to the fish post-digestion. Relying on DP just leads to much sharper formulations.
Better feed conversion, less waste. Makes sense.
And it's especially critical now with the shift towards alternative ingredients.
Yeah, good point. The plant-based stuff, animal byproducts, replacing fish meal.
Yes, and their digestibility varies wildly. The review stresses this. If you're using alternatives, you need to look at high DP sources.
Otherwise, you risk poor FCR and more nitrogen discharge. Bad for the wallet, bad for the environment.
Definitely. It's a crucial distinction.
Okay, moving on from the type of protein, let's talk about its relationship with energy. The protein-to-energy ratio, PE.
Another critical piece. This is all about the protein sparing effect.
Okay, explain that. How does it work?
Well, if the diet has enough easily accessible energy from non-protein sources, think lipids, carbohydrates, the fish uses that for its basic metabolic needs.
Instead of breaking down valuable protein just for energy.
Exactly. It spares the protein to do its main job. Building tissue, growth, get the PE ratio wrong, and you're either wasting protein as expensive fuel or hindering growth.
And likely increasing nitrogen waste again.
Right. So optimizing that PE ratio is key for efficiency and, again, for minimizing environmental impact.
Does the review give a target range for tilapia?
It mentions a range often linked to better growth and nutrient retention, around 16.5 to 19.1 milligrams of protein per kilojoule of energy.
But I imagine that's not a fixed number across the board.
No, absolutely not. And that's critical. The ideal PE shifts. It depends heavily on the fish's developmental stage and the rearing system. It's dynamic.
Which leads us nicely into those phase-specific needs. Let's start really small post-larva, under 0.4 grams. What did the review find there?
For post-larvae, the CP range was quite wide, 220 up to maybe 386 grams per kilogram.
Interesting range. Any system effects noted?
Yes, particularly that the lower end, the 220 mark, was often seen in biofloc systems.
Ah, because the biofloc itself provides natural food supplementing the formulated feed.
Precisely. The microbial community offers extra nutrition, reducing the demand on the feed protein. It shows how management impacts nutrition directly.
Very efficient for early stages. Okay, what about fingerlings, say 0.5 up to 20 grams?
Here, the CP range shifts higher, maybe 250 to 450 grams per kilogram. But what becomes really clear is the importance of amino acid balance.
So not just the total protein, but the quality and specific amino acid profile.
Exactly. With good amino acid supplementation, some studies showed effective DP levels could be as low as, say, 260 grams per kilogram and still get great growth.
That's quite a bit lower than the top end of the CP range.
It is. And again, the environment matters. Differences pop up between RAS and biofloc. Tells you targeting crude protein alone isn't enough. You need that amino acid precision.
Especially in more intensive systems, I'd guess. Right, moving up to juveniles, 21 to 200 grams.
The CP range stays fairly high, maybe 270 to 400 grams per kilogram. And we keep seeing that theme of amino acid enrichment paying off. Lysine and methionine supplementation, particularly in biofloc where the microbial protein is already contributing. You can potentially hit optimal growth with DP levels around 250, 283 kilograms if you supplement smartly.
So understanding the contribution of the system itself is vital for efficient feeding.
Absolutely. It lets you optimize feed and potentially cut costs.
Okay, then the main growth phase, 200 up to maybe 550 grams. Do protein needs start to level off or decrease here?
Generally, yes. The review suggests a slightly lower CP range, maybe 220 to 320 grams per kilogram.
And system matters here too. Ponds, for example.
Right. In ponds, natural productivity can become a more significant contributor during this phase, potentially allowing for slightly lower dietary protein levels compared to, say, RAS.
And the reported DP levels?
They tend to fall between about 243 and 270 grams per kilogram, but again, very much system dependent.
Finally, for production fish, the fattening phase. Over 550 grams heading to market. What's needed then?
We see a bit of a moderate increase again in the digestible protein requirement, generally falling in the 270 to 320 grams per kilogram DP range.
An increase? Why might that be?
The review suggests higher stocking densities, common in final grow-out, might push the requirement up a bit. And there are even slight differences noted between net cages and biofloc in this phase.
Okay, so across the board for growth, it's really about tailoring the protein and the DP level very specifically to the phase and system.
It's a dynamic target, definitely.
Let's shift gears now to reproduction. The review highlights nutrition's huge impact here.
Huge is the right word. Protein levels directly influence everything from female fecundity, egg viability, all the way to larval quality and vigor.
So what kind of levels are we talking about for broodstock?
Significantly higher than for grow-outs. The review links a CP range of about 350 to 450 grams per kilogram, with better outcomes. Things like earlier maturation, better reproductive performance overall.
Any specific examples?
Yeah, one study found 400 gigagram CP sped up female maturation. Another showed 385 gigagram DP boosted egg output significantly. It reflects the massive nutrient investment needed for reproduction.
That's a big jump from the later growth phases. But it's not just about piling on the protein, is it? Energy balance is still key.
Absolutely crucial. The review points this out clearly. For instance, a DP level around 280 gigkilograms worked well for egg production when paired with the right energy level, about 11.7 megajoules per kilogram of DE.
And too much energy can be bad.
Yes, potentially detrimental. You risk excessive fat deposition, liver problems like hepatic steatosis, which can really impair reproduction, so that PE ratio concept.
Yes.
Still vital for broodstock.
Maybe even more vital, given the high demands and the need for long-term health of the breeders.
Exactly. Good PE management isn't just about this spawning cycle. It's about the broodstock's longevity, health, and consistently producing high-quality eggs and fry. It's really a holistic nutritional approach.
This whole discussion really drives home how essential a refined, phase-specific dietary strategy is for tilapia in U.S. aquaculture.
It really does. A generic approach just won't optimize things.
And getting it wrong too much or too little protein at any stage has real knock-on effects.
Big consequences. For growth, obviously, but also for feed efficiency, which hits the bottom line, and for nitrogen waste, which impacts environmental sustainability.
So the take-home message for everyone listening seems pretty clear. Precision is paramount.
Absolutely. Tailoring dietary protein, specifically digestible protein, and balancing it with energy to the life stage, the system, and your production goals is just fundamental for success.
Sustainable success, both economically and environmentally.
And looking ahead, the research focus needs to continue on those alternative protein sources.
Yeah.
Really nailing down their DP values and optimal amino acid profiles for tilapia.
That continued work will be key for improving sustainability and maybe reducing reliance on traditional ingredients, right?
No doubt. It's vital for the industry's continued growth and efficiency.
Some excellent, really practical insights there. Thanks for walking us through this dense review. It definitely highlights protein nutrition as a cornerstone of modern tilapia farming.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow the Aquaculture Podcast Show on your favorite platform. And don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook to stay updated on the latest episodes and industry insights. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.